The iron gates of the Human Knight Academy creaked open. Every sound seemed louder in the sudden silence. Students froze mid-step. Swords stopped mid-swing. All eyes turned to the figure walking through the gates. He was huge. Taller than two. Men standing together. His armor was black and dented, each mark telling of a battle fought and survived. Across his green skin were scars, some fresh, some old as forgotten wars. His tusks curved forward like ivory blades, and his yellow eyes scanned the courtyard like a hunter searching for prey. An orc, not just any orc. This was the warlord of the Red Fang clan, the most feared warrior in the southern mountains. A young squire dropped his practice sword with a loud clatter. "Why is he here?" The boy whispered to his friend. The warlord's boots struck the stone floor with heavy thuds, each one echoing in the cold air. He carried no weapon in his hand, but every knight there knew he was a weapon. His very presence was a threat. Head Knight, an older man with a silver beard, stepped forward. "Warlord," he said carefully, "you stand in a place where orcs have never been welcome. Why have you come?" The warlord stopped in the center of the courtyard. His voice was deep and rough, like stones grinding together. "I have seen battles," he said. "I have seen blood. I have seen men run from my shadow, but," he paused, "I have also seen something I cannot understand. I have come to learn what it is." The knights exchanged puzzled glances. What could an orc not understand? The warlord's gaze swept across the training field. "I will watch," he said, "and I will know." The students went back to their drills, but nothing felt normal. Every strike of a sword, every block of a shield, seemed watched and weighed by those sharp yellow eyes. The warlord stood like a mountain, unmoving, yet his presence filled the air with tension. Two young knights sparred in the center ring. Their wooden swords clashed in fast, sharp bursts. The warlord's brow furrowed. Humans moved differently. Then orcs faster, lighter on their feet, and with a strange rhythm. The head knight stepped beside him. "You're surprised," he said. "They are small," the warlord admitted, "but their hands move like the wind." "They are trained to fight as one mind," the head knight replied. "Strength is not the only weapon in war." The warlord's tusks twitched. Strength was everything, at least that was what every orc believed. But here, he was not so sure. A sudden voice broke the air. "Let me fight him." The courtyard fell silent again. Everyone turned to see a young woman step forward. She was barely taller than the warlord's chest, her armor light and polished, her eyes sharp with confidence. The head knight's brow creased. "Cadet, this is not—" "She speaks for herself." The warlord's deep voice cut through. "I do," the young woman answered. She gripped a wooden training sword. "Unless you are afraid of losing to someone smaller than you." The warlord's tusks showed in a half-smile. "I am afraid of nothing." The circle formed quickly. Students leaned in, whispering. Orc versus human. No one had ever seen such a thing in the academy. The young knight raised her sword in salute. The warlord simply stood, watching her. She moved first, quick as lightning, her blade flashing toward his side. He blocked with a single arm, his strength pushing her back, but she slipped away before he could counter. Again she struck high-low, then spinning to his blind side. The warlord swung, but she was already gone. He growled, his heavy boots chasing her across the circle. "You move like a rabbit," he rumbled, "and you swing like a tree falling." She shot back. The crowd chuckled softly, but the warlord's eyes narrowed. He pushed harder, striking with enough force to shatter bone, but each time her blade touched him first. A tap to his arm, a touch to his shoulder. Then, in a single fluid motion, she ducked under a swing and placed the tip of her sword gently against the center of his chest. The courtyard erupted in shouts. The warlord froze. His breathing was heavy. For the first time in many years, he had been defeated, and not by a stronger foe. but by one who used no strength at all. The head knight stepped forward. Strength wins battles, he said. But skill wins wars. The warlord looked at the young woman. She lowered her sword but held his gaze without fear. He felt something unfamiliar stir inside him, not anger, not shame, but respect. He removed his helmet, holding it under one arm. "You have taught me," he said slowly, "what no enemy ever could." He turned to the head knight. "I will train here. I will learn, and my people will learn." Gasps spread through the crowd. An orc warlord asking to learn from humans? Such a thing had never happened before. As he left the courtyard that evening, the sun sinking behind the academy towers, the warlord spoke quietly to the orc warrior who had waited outside the gate. "If the other clans see what I have seen," he said, "they will not want war, they will want teachers." Far in the shadows beyond the road, a figure watched them. A faint smile touched the stranger's lips. The warlord had come for answers, but now others would come for him. The next morning, the Human Knight Academy was already alive with the sound of clashing swords and shouted orders. Sunlight poured through the high windows of the main training hall, where young cadets moved in lines, practicing footwork. But all movement slowed when the massive shadow of the orc warlord appeared in the doorway. The young knights glanced at one another. Some looked nervous, others looked curious. No one spoke. The warlord stepped inside, his heavy boots echoing against the stone floor. His armor clinked with each movement. His eyes scanned the hall, not with anger, but with sharp focus, like a hunter sizing up his prey. The head knight walked forward. "You came back," he said. "I said I would train," the warlord replied. "I keep my word." The head knight nodded slowly. "Then you will follow the rules here. No real weapons, no killing blows, and no threats outside the ring." The warlord gave a single short nod. "I will follow." For now. Training began. A group of cadets practiced in pairs while instructors shouted corrections. The warlord stood in the corner, watching their movements with a frown. "Why do they swing so lightly?" he asked one of the instructors. "Because they are learning precision," the man replied. "If you cannot strike where you mean to, power will not help you." The warlord grunted. In orc culture, a strike was meant to crush, to break bone, to end the fight in one blow. This was different. The head knight led him to a sparring ring. "Your turn," he said. A young man stepped in, tall and broad-shouldered, clearly the strongest of the cadets. He wore light armor and carried a wooden sword. His eyes held a mix of excitement and fear. The warlord smiled slightly. "This one will fight well," he said. The duel began. The cadet struck first, fast and clean, but the warlord blocked easily. The young man attacked again and again, yet each strike met the warlord's arm or shoulder like a hammer hitting a wall. "You are strong," the warlord said, "but you waste your breath." With one push, he sent the cadet stumbling back across the ring. Gasps came from the crowd. But the young knight didn't give up. He adjusted his stance, slowed his breathing, and circled carefully. This time, he waited for the warlord to move first. When the warlord swung, the cadet stepped aside and tapped his shoulder with a quick, precise strike. Not enough to hurt, just enough to mark the hit. The warlord froze for a moment, then chuckled. "Better. You think before you strike." The match ended without a clear winner, but the warlord's expression had changed. Later, during the midday break, the warlord sat alone at a long wooden table in the dining hall. His plate of food was untouched. His gaze was fixed on the cadets, watching how they laughed together, sharing bread and stories. An older knight approached and sat across from him. "You are quiet," he said. "I am thinking," the warlord replied. "In my clan we eat in silence. Here you speak and laugh, even with those you fought this morning." The older knight smiled faintly. "We are not enemies here. We are brothers and sisters in arms. The warlord's brow furrowed. That is why you fight as one mind, he said softly. The peace was broken when the great bronze doors of the hall slammed open. A breathless messenger stumbled inside. Sir, riders on the northern road flying the Black Wolf banner. A ripple of alarm moved through the room. The Black Wolf clan was one of the most dangerous orc tribes, known for raiding human villages. Without mercy, the head knight rose at once. Sound the alarm. Prepare the gates. The warlord stood as well, his face darkening. They should not be here. They know this is human land. They are here for war, the head knight said, and we are not ready. I am, the warlord growled. The academy gates were soon lined with armed knights. The cadets, though, untested in real battle, stood ready with shields and spears dot in the distance. A line of riders approached, their black armor glinting under the afternoon sun. The warlord's sharp eyes picked out the leader, a tall orc with a cruel smile, and a scar across his jaw. The leader reined in his horse just outside the gate. So it's true, he called out. The great warlord of the Red Fang trains with humans like a tame dog. The warlord's tusks bared. Careful with your words, the leader laughed. Come back with us. Leave these weaklings before. You shame your blood. The warlord's answer was quiet, but it carried. I will not leave. And if you cross this gate, you will not leave either. The Black Wolf riders shifted uneasily. They were used to facing humans, not an orc warlord standing against them. The leader's smile faded. Then we will see who bleeds first. He spurred his horse forward, but before he could reach the gate, the young female knight from the day before stepped into the road, wooden training sword in hand. Gasps rose from both sides. You, the leader sneered. Do you think you can stop me? She didn't answer. She simply took her stance. The warlord's voice rumbled from behind. The gate. Touch her, and you face me. For a long moment, no one moved. The air was thick with tension. Then, slowly, the leader pulled his horse back. This is not over, he said, turning away. When we return, you will not have walls to hide behind. The riders wheeled their horses and disappeared into the northern road. When the gates closed, the academy erupted in relief. But the warlord remained silent, his eyes fixed on the road. The head knight approached. You know they will come back. Yes, the warlord said. And when they do, they will not find the same academy they saw today. His tusks curled into a determined smile. They will find warriors ready for them. The young female knight stepped up beside him. And they will find us waiting. The warlord glanced at her, and for the first time, his deep voice held something like pride. That night, as the moon rose over the academy, the warlord stood on the wall, watching the distant shadows in the mountains. The Black Wolf clan had tested his loyalty. Now they had given him something even more dangerous than war, a reason to fight for more than himself. The next day, the academy woke before the sun. The warning of the Black Wolf clan's return hung heavy in the air. The young knights moved faster than usual, strapping on armor and sharpening blades. Even the birds seemed quieter. The warlord stood in the courtyard, arms crossed, watching the cadets warm up. His deep voice broke the morning silence. You train like children, he said. A few cadets bristled at the insult, but the head knight raised his hand. What would you have them do, warlord? The orc stepped forward. If the Black Wolves come, they will not fight you one by one. They will crush you together. You must learn to fight like them. And against them. The head knight hesitated. Show us. The warlord called 3 of the largest cadets into the sparring ring. Attack me, he said simply. They glanced at each other, unsure. One swung his sword. Another tried to circle around, but the warlord moved with shocking speed for his size. He blocked the first strike, kicked the second cadet back, and caught the third by the wrist, twisting until the young man dropped his sword. Too slow, Too proud, the warlord growled. You think you have time to choose your strike. In battle, your enemy chooses for you. He released the cadet and stepped back. Again, the next round was better. The cadets pressed together, forcing him to guard on all sides. Still, he slipped between them like a shadow, using his strength to unbalance and disarm. The watching knights whispered among themselves. The warlord wasn't just strong, he was teaching them things human knights didn't practice. The young female knight from before stepped into the ring. Your turn to face me again, she said. The warlord's tusks curled in a faint smile. You have already beaten me. Then maybe you will learn faster this time. They began slowly circling. She struck first, quick and light, but the warlord had been studying her footwork. He blocked, then moved forward with a sudden burst of speed, forcing her back. She ducked under his swing, but this time, he anticipated it and caught her by the arm. Instead of throwing her, he stopped and said quietly, In battle I would have broken your arm here, but you could have stabbed my side at the same time. Both dead. Learn to live while killing. She pulled free, eyes narrowing. Then, teach me how to live. The rest of the morning became a blur of training. The warlord showed them how to break lines, how to fight when surrounded, and how to turn an enemy's strength into weakness. He was relentless, forcing them to repeat moves until their arms ached and sweat ran into their eyes. By midday, even the toughest knights were exhausted. But the warlord wasn't finished. He pointed to the wooden practice swords. You fight with toys. You will not kill with these. The head knight stepped in. We are not yet ready for steel. You are never ready until you are forced to be, the warlord said. The black wolves will not wait for you to be ready. The head knight's jaw tightened. We will train with steel tomorrow. The warlord nodded. Tomorrow may be too late. That night, the academy was quiet. The moon hung low over the walls, casting long shadows across the training yard. The warlord sat alone by the fire, sharpening his axe. The young female knight approached, sitting across from him. You don't sleep much, she said. Sleep is for those who do not expect an attack, he replied. Do you think they'll come tonight? The warlord's yellow eyes lifted to the mountains. If I were their leader, yes. They sat in silence for a moment. Then she asked, Why do you care what happens to us? You're an orc, we're humans, we've fought for years. He was quiet for a long time before answering. Because I have fought too many battles where I did not know why. I see here something I have never seen among orcs: loyalty without fear. You fight for each other, not for your own glory. That is worth protecting. She studied him in the firelight. Maybe you're more human than you think. The warlord's tusks shifted in what might have been a smile. Or maybe you are more orc than you think. Suddenly, a distant horn blew. One note, low and long. The warlord was on his feet in an instant. They're here. The alarm bells began to ring. Knights rushed from their quarters, armor clanging, weapons in hand. The head knight shouted orders from the wall. In the distance, dark shapes moved under the moonlight riders, dozens of them, approaching fast. The warlord strode to the gates. Open them. The head knight spun toward him. Have you lost your mind? They expect you to hide behind walls. We will meet them outside. That's suicide, the head knight snapped. The warlord's eyes blazed. No, that is surprise. For a tense moment, no one moved. Then the young female knight stepped forward. I'll go with him. A few more cadets stepped out of the line, then a few more, until nearly half the academy stood ready behind the warlord. The head knight stared at them, then gave a short nod. Very well. But if we do this, we do it your way, warlord. The gates opened. The night air was cold and still. The warlord led them forward, moving silently until they reached a narrow pass in the road. Here, he whispered. We wait. The riders came thundering into view, the black wolf banner snapping. In the wind. At the front rode the same scar-jawed leader from before. He didn't see them until it was too late. The warlord gave a single sharp whistle. The knights moved as one, blocking the pass. The leader pulled his horse up short. "You think this will stop us?" he snarled. The warlord stepped forward, axe in hand. "No, I will stop you." The standoff lasted only seconds. Then the leader drew his blade, and the fight exploded. Steel rang in the moonlight. Horses reared. Shouts filled the air. The warlord moved like a storm, knocking riders from their saddles, breaking weapons with crushing blows. The young female knight fought at his side, fast and deadly, striking before enemies could even raise their shields. One by one, the black wolves fell back, their line breaking under the unexpected assault. The leader tried to rally them, but the warlord charged straight for him. Their weapons clashed in a shower of sparks. With a final twist, the warlord knocked the sword from his enemy's hand and pressed his axe to the orc's throat. "Go," he growled, "and tell them the humans are ready." The leader spat on the ground but backed away, signaling his riders to retreat. When it was over, the warlord stood in the road, breathing hard, his armor dented and bloody. The knights gathered around him, their eyes shining with something more than relief-respect. The head knight stepped forward. "You were right," he said. "Tonight they learned we are not weak." The warlord's gaze shifted to the young female knight. "Tonight I learned something too." She tilted her head. "And what's that?" He looked back toward the mountains. "That I am not just here to learn. I am here to fight with you." The sun rose slow and red the next morning, painting the academy walls in a blood-like glow. The air felt heavy, as if the night's battle had left more than dents in armor. The courtyard was alive with activity. Knights repaired shields, replaced broken sword handles, and cleaned blood from the flagstones. The warlord stood near the gate, sharpening his axe in slow, deliberate strokes. His eyes were not on the work in front of him, but on the road that led into the mountains. The young female knight approached. "You've been staring at that road since dawn." He didn't look at her, because the road is wrong. She frowned. "What do you mean?" "Last night, they retreated too easily," the warlord said. "The black wolves are many things. Foolish is not one of them. They lost fewer warriors than I expected. That means—" He stopped. "That means they were testing us," she finished, her voice quiet. The warlord finally looked at her. "Yes, and when an enemy tests you, it is because they are planning something worse." The head knight joined them, wiping his hands on a rag. "Scouts went out at first light. They haven't come back yet. I don't like it." "Where did you send them?" the warlord asked. "Up the northern trail, toward the Black Wolf camp." The warlord's tusks tightened. "You won't see them again if that camp is where I think it is." The young female knight stepped forward. "Then let's go find them before it's too late." The head knight hesitated. "If you go in small numbers. We can't risk more of our fighters." The warlord grunted. "3 will be enough. Too many and we'll be seen." An hour later, the warlord, the young knight, and another cadet named Arlen moved quietly along the narrow mountain path. The wind was sharp, carrying the smell of pine and something else. "Do you smell that?" the young knight asked. The warlord nodded grimly. "Smoke, but not from a campfire too. Much oil, too heavy." They rounded a bend and stopped dead. Below them, hidden in a valley, was a massive encampment, hundreds of tents, fires burning black. And not just black wolves, there were other orc banners too. Blue Fang, Stoneblood, even the rare white scar. "Clan," Arlen's eyes widened. "They're uniting." The warlord's voice was low and dangerous. "This is no raid. This is war." Before they could turn back, a twig snapped behind them. The warlord spun. Axe raised, but too late. 3 orc scouts stepped from the shadows, blades drawn. One snarled. "Looks like the rumors were true." The Warlord fights with humans now. The Warlord didn't waste words. He moved. The fight was fast and brutal. The Warlord blocked one strike and smashed the attacker's jaw with his elbow. The young knight parried another's blade and drove her sword into his side. Arlen took a shallow cut to the arm before kicking his opponent down the slope. The last orc, bleeding from a gash in his leg, stumbled back toward the valley. "They'll know you're here," he shouted before vanishing into the camp. The Warlord's face was hard. "We need to move, now." They ran, taking a longer, rougher path back to the academy. By the time they reached the gates, the head knight was waiting. "Well?" he demanded. The Warlord stepped forward. "They're gathering every clan they can, hundreds of warriors, maybe more." The head knight's jaw tightened. "Then we have little time." The young knight spoke quickly. "We also saw something else strange tents at the center of the camp. They were guarded more heavily than anything else." The Warlord nodded. "Whatever is in those tents is important. And dangerous." That night, a council was held in the war room. The table was covered with maps, candles burning low. "They will march within days," the head knight said. "We cannot hold the academy against such numbers." "We could leave," suggested one of the older knights. "Fall back to the city." "No," the Warlord said sharply. "If you run, they will follow. And they will not stop at the city." "And what do you suggest?" the head knight asked. The Warlord leaned forward. "We strike first. Not at the whole camp, just at what they guard most. Whatever they hide in those central tents may be the heart of their plan. Cut out the heart, and the body dies." The room fell silent. "That's madness," one knight muttered. "It's war," the Warlord replied. The plan was set. Before dawn, a small team would slip into the enemy camp, find what was in those guarded tents, and destroy it if possible. The young knight and Arlen volunteered without hesitation. When the Warlord asked why, she said simply, "Because I want to fight the reason for this war, not just its soldiers." The night before the mission, the Warlord stood on the wall, looking toward the mountains again. The young knight joined him. "You've been thinking," she said. He nodded. "If we fail, they will come here in full force. If we succeed, they will still come, but without their strongest weapon." She looked up at him. "And if we don't come back?" The Warlord's yellow eyes glinted in the moonlight. "Then we die knowing we tried to save them." Before dawn, the three of them slipped out through the hidden postern gate. The mountains loomed ahead, dark and silent. Every step took them closer to the enemy, and to something none of them could yet imagine. When they reached the valley, again the camp was quieter. Most of the warriors were still asleep. They moved like shadows, skirting the edge of the camp until they reached the central tents. Two huge orc guards stood in front of the entrance, armed with heavy spears. The Warlord motioned for silence, then picked up a stone and tossed it into the darkness. The sound drew the guards away, and the three slipped inside. What they saw stopped them cold. It wasn't weapons. It wasn't treasure. It was cages. And in those cages humans. Dozens of them. Old, young, some in chains, others barely able to stand. Arlen's voice shook. They're going to use them as... The Warlord's eyes narrowed. Bargaining chips, shields, or worse. The young knight gripped her sword. Then we free them, now. They moved quickly, breaking locks and whispering for the prisoners to follow quietly. But just as the last cage opened, a voice roared. Outside, the scar-jawed leader stood in the doorway, flanked by a dozen armed orcs. "I wondered when you'd come," he said, smiling coldly. "And now you've come to die." The Warlord stepped in front of the prisoners, axe ready. "Not today," he growled. The fight erupted in the cramped tent. Blades clashed, shouts filled the air. The Warlord cut down two attackers before they reached the prisoners. The young knight and Arlen fought side by side, driving the enemy back long enough for the captives to escape into the dark. But the scar-jawed leader was strong, too strong to defeat quickly. He and the warlord locked weapons, each pushing with all their strength. "You can't save them all," the leader hissed. "Watch me," the warlord snarled, breaking the lock and smashing the leader's face with the blunt end of his axe. They fled into the night, the freed prisoners stumbling behind them. The sound of horns echoed through the valley. By the time they reached the academy gates, the first light of dawn touched the sky. The prisoners were safe inside, but the warlord knew the cost. "They will come now," he said. "Not in days, in hours." The head knight's eyes were grim. "Then we will be ready." The warlord looked at the young knight, and for the first time, there was no trace of doubt in his voice. "We fight together," he said. She nodded. "Until the end." The sun was setting behind the academy walls when the orc warlord walked alone through the training yard. The air smelled of steel and dust. Human cadets had already gone to their quarters, but a few lingered in the shadows, whispering about the strange visitor. A young knight trainee stepped forward, his voice shaking slightly. "Warlord, why do you keep walking here every night? You don't train with us, you don't speak to us." The orc's eyes were fixed on the ground. "I am listening," he said. "To what?" The boy asked. The warlord looked up. Slowly. "To the sound of fear." The boy frowned. "Fear? No one is afraid of you here. We're warriors too." The orc chuckled, a low sound. "I do not speak of your fear of me. I speak of the fear that lives in these walls. The kind that hides in silence." Before the boy could reply, a faint metallic clang came from the armory. The warlord's head turned sharply. Without a word, he began walking toward the sound, his heavy boots echoing on the stone floor. Inside the armory, torches flickered weakly. The racks of swords and shields stood still except one. A sword lay on the floor, its blade wet, not with oil, but with something darker. The boy's voice trembled. Is that blood?" The warlord crouched and sniffed the blade. His face hardened. "Fresh, less than an hour old." The boy stepped back. "But no one has been in the armory since training ended." The orc picked up the sword, turning it in the torchlight. "Someone was, and they left in a hurry." He placed the sword back on the rack, but left it leaning at a strange angle, almost like a sign. The boy noticed. "Why did you do that?" The warlord's voice was low. "So I can see if someone touches it again. We wait." They hid in the shadows near the door. Minutes passed. Then footsteps light, careful, entered the armory. A figure cloaked in black reached for the same sword. The warlord moved with sudden speed, grabbing the intruder's wrist. The figure hissed. "Let go." The torchlight revealed a pale human face, eyes cold as ice. The orc tightened his grip. "Who are you?" The figure didn't answer. Instead, he pulled a dagger from his belt and swung at the warlord. The orc twisted, the blade grazing his armor. The boy gasped and ran for help, but the warlord growled, "No, stay." The intruder struggled, but the orc's strength was unshakable. "You came for the sword," the warlord said. "Why?" the man smirked. "Because it's not just a sword, it's a key." The orc's eyes narrowed. "A key to what?" But before the man could speak, a sharp whistle echoed from outside. The intruder's head jerked toward the sound, and in a blink, he twisted free, rolling across the floor and vanishing into the dark hallway. The boy ran after him, but the warlord's voice stopped him cold. "Let him go. We know enough now." The boy turned confused. "Enough?" He escaped. The warlord lifted the sword again, his gaze fixed on the strange symbols engraved near the hilt symbols the boy hadn't noticed before. "This," the warlord said, "is not from your people." "And it is not from mine." The boy's heart pounded. Then, "Where is it from?" The warlord's eyes met his. "From somewhere that should not exist." The boy swallowed hard. "What do we do?" The warlord slid the sword into his own belt. We prepare, because whatever door this opens, it was never meant to be opened. Outside, the last light of day vanished, and somewhere deep below the academy, a faint rumble began so soft it could have been mistaken for the wind. But the warlord knew better. It was the sound of something waking up. The warlord sat by the fire in the dim light of the war room, the strange sword resting beside him on the wooden table. The symbols on the blade seemed to shimmer in the flickering flames. The young knight, standing nearby, watched him closely. "What? Is this sword really?" she asked quietly. The warlord traced a finger over the markings. "It is a key," he said. "But not to a door or chest. It is a key to something old. Something dangerous." The young knight frowned. "Dangerous? How?" Before the warlord could answer, the head knight entered the room, his face pale. "Scouts report strange movements in the mountain caves. Lights flickering, shadows moving where there should be none." The warlord's eyes narrowed. "The sword's power is waking something beneath us." The young knight stepped forward. "What do we do?" "We prepare," the warlord said. "If the sword opens a door, we must be ready for what comes through." Later that night, as the academy slept, a low rumble shook the stone walls. The warlord stood on the ramparts, the sword at his side. His breath formed clouds in the cold air. "Do you hear it?" The young knight whispered, joining him. "A deep sound," he said, "like a beast waking from a long sleep." Suddenly, a crack appeared in the earth below the academy's foundation. Dust and stones tumbled into the darkness. The warlord's voice was steady but fierce. "This is only the beginning." In the war room, the warlord and the knights gathered around a map. The head knight pointed to the mountain caves. "We believe something ancient sleeps there," he said. "The sword must be linked." The warlord nodded. "Then we strike first." "But how?" the young knight asked. "We don't know what we face. We fight with what we have," the warlord said. "And with each other." The next morning, the warlord led a small team toward the caves. The air grew colder with every step. Shadows danced on the jagged rocks. Inside the cave, an eerie glow pulsed from deep within. The warlord held the sword high. The strange symbols on the blade glowed brighter. Suddenly, a voice echoed through the cave, cold and hollow. "Who dares wake me?" The warlord gripped his axe tighter. "We do. We seek peace, but we will fight if forced." From the shadows emerged a giant creature, part stone, part shadow. Its eyes burned like embers. The young knight gasped, "What is that?" The warlord answered without fear, "A guardian, bound to the sword. It tests those who seek it." The creature stepped forward, its heavy footfall shaking the cave. "Prove your worth," it said, "or be crushed." The team readied weapons. The battle was fierce. The creature's blows echoed like thunder. The warlord dodged and struck, the sword glowing in his hand. The young knight found an opening and drove her blade into the creature's side. The guardian howled in pain but did not fall. Suddenly, the cave shook violently. Rocks fell. The guardian roared and vanished into the darkness. The warlord helped the young knight to her feet. "We have passed the test," he said. "But what now?" she asked. The warlord looked toward the cave's mouth. "Now we return. Warn the academy. The real war is coming." Back at the academy, the warlord gathered the knights. "The sword's power is ancient," he said, "and the guardian will not be the last obstacle." The head knight spoke. "Then we must be ready for anything." The young knight nodded. "Together." The warlord smiled, a rare light in his fierce eyes. "Together." As night fell, the academy prepared for what lay ahead. The sword lay on the war table, its glow dim but steady. The warlord stood watch, knowing the coming days would test them all. But with the sword in hand and allies by his side, he was ready to face the darkness. The warlord stood at the edge of the training yard, the cold wind tugging at his cloak. The sword hung at his side, its symbols faintly glowing even in the daylight. Beside him, the young knight approached, her expression tense but determined. "We can't wait any longer," she said. The guardian was only the first challenge. What if more dangers lie ahead? The warlord nodded slowly. "Every step we take uncovers deeper shadows. We must move carefully, but quickly." The head knight joined them, holding a map marked with new signs. "Scouts have spotted unusual activity near the old ruins beyond the forest. It could be related to the sword's power." The young knight's eyes widened. "The ruins? No one has gone there for years. It's said to be cursed." "Then it's time someone breaks the curse," the warlord said firmly. That night, under a moonless sky, the small team slipped into the forest. Branches cracked softly beneath their feet, and strange sounds echoed from the darkness. The warlord's axe was ready. The sword glowed faintly in the young knight's hand. Suddenly, whispers floated through the air. "Who dares disturb the resting place?" A chilling voice seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere. The warlord stepped forward. "We seek answers. We fight to protect our home." A figure appeared, a shadowy shape with eyes like burning coals. "Then face your fears," it said, moving closer. The fight was fierce but brief. The shadow creature moved quickly, striking from the darkness. The young knight dodged and struck back, the sword's glow cutting through the gloom. The warlord used his strength to block attacks and protect the team. Suddenly, the creature vanished with a howl, leaving behind a small glowing stone. The head knight picked it up carefully. "This is a shard of the ancient power." The young knight looked at the warlord. "What does it mean?" The warlord's eyes were grave. "It means the power behind the sword is growing stronger, and so is the enemy." Back at the academy, the atmosphere was tense. Every knight prepared for the battles to come. The warlord addressed them. "We have faced tests, but the real fight is ahead. The sword's power calls forces beyond our world. We must stand united." A murmur of agreement rose. The young knight spoke up. "We fight not just for ourselves, but for all who cannot." The warlord nodded. "Then let them come. We will be ready." That night, as the winds howled outside the walls, the warlord stared into the darkness. The sword's glow pulsed softly. From the shadows, a cold voice whispered, "This is only the beginning." The moon hung high over the academy, casting cold light on stone walls scarred from battle. Inside the war room, the warlord, the young knight, and the head knight gathered around the map, their faces drawn tight with worry. "The shadows we face are more than warriors," the warlord said, voice low but firm. "The sword awakened an ancient evil, something that was locked away long ago." The young knight's eyes widened. "What is it? What do we fight?" The warlord pointed to the dark forest beyond the ruins, a being of shadow and fire. "It feeds on fear and grows stronger with each breath we take." The head knight spoke with grim certainty. "If it reaches the academy, all will be lost." That night, the air grew heavy and still. The warlord led a small group out through the secret gate, heading toward the heart of the forest. The sword glowed brighter with every step, lighting their path. Suddenly, the ground trembled. From the shadows, the dark figure emerged, a towering creature with eyes like burning coals and a voice like thunder. "You who wield the sword, dare face me." It boomed. The warlord tightened his grip on his axe. "We fight for all who live here." The battle began. The creature's flames lit the night as it struck with fierce power. The young knight dodged and struck with the sword, its glow piercing the darkness. The warlord met the creature's blows, protecting the knights behind him. Steel clashed with fire, and the forest echoed with the sounds of war. In a sudden move, the creature unleashed a wave of dark energy, knocking the knights back. The young knight staggered, pain flashing across her face. The warlord's voice cut through the chaos. "Remember why we fight, for hope, for each other." Summoning all his strength, the warlord charged, axe raised. The young knight found her feet and rushed forward, swords shining bright. Together, they struck at the creature's heart. With a roar, the creature collapsed, its flames dying to embers. The forest fell silent. Breathing hard, the warlord looked at the young knight. "This is the end or a new beginning?" She nodded. "Whatever comes, we face it as one." Back at the academy, dawn broke over the walls. The sword's glow faded, its power spent for now. The head knight smiled for the first time in days. "We survived." The warlord sheathed the sword. "Because we stood together." The young knight smiled too. "And because we believe in each other." Outside, the sun rose, casting warm light on a world still full of danger, but also full of hope.